Alrighty guys, welcome back to this next little video where we are going to be taking a look at the Dell Precision T3500 and overclocking. Let's get into it. Okay guys, before we get into anything, I would like to just say stay tuned till the end of the video, or skip to the end of the video if you're just looking about leaving. I'm going to be talking about the future of my channel, and I would very much like some input on that. So, thank you very much. Like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and let's get into the video. Alright guys, let's get into the Dell Precision T3500 and the nitty of gritty when it comes to overclocking on this thing. By the way, I'm just going to put this out there right now. If you overclock on this thing and you blow it up, that's on you, not me. I'm fully well aware of the situation of what could happen by overclocking a machine that was not designed to overclock. But I'll tell you why overclocking is good and bad on this thing, so yeah. So, the good. With the unlocked CPU, like the W3680, W3690, the W3570 and W3580, you can overclock using Intel's Extreme Tuning Utility, or a older version of Intel's Extreme Tuning Utility. I have not been able to get the new stuff to work, or the new Intel Extreme Tuning Utility to work very well. The older one, though, I can get to work every single time without any issue. But you are still going to run into the problems that we're going to be talking about here, which is the hard power cap. Now, the power cap is essentially the power limit that it is going to hit when trying to overclock your CPU past a certain point. Now, when the CPU tries to draw too much power from the socket, the motherboard will essentially say, nope, you don't get any more power, downclock yourself to 1.6 GHz, and that's what happens. The CPU downclocks itself to 1.6 GHz, which is an extremely jarring drop. Now that's when you try and overclock it too far. Let me show you what I mean. As you can see here, this is a Cinebench R15 kind of score sheet. At 3.6 GHz, we got a 793. It was either 3.6 or 3.7. I don't remember exactly, so don't quote me on anything, but we were running a 793 Cinebench score, which was a very respectable score. Then when I bumped it all the way up to 4.1 GHz, we only got an 800. So we got 7 points higher trying to run it significantly faster. And that is where the hard power limit comes into play. It was constantly dropping to 1.6, then back up to 4.1, which is incredibly inconsistent, and if you were to be, say, playing a game that was very CPU intensive, you would feel that constantly. That would be a complete and utter freeze for about a half second, and then your game would reactivate, or it would restart. I guess I shouldn't say restart. It would be a 1.5 second just pause, and then it would continue. It would really, really be jarring and very, very disruptive to gameplay. And you can see it in some of our other synthetics. This is a score sheet for 3D Mark Firestrike running at 4.1. For the graphics test, or for the first demo of the graphics test, you can see where we had two spots where it dropped all the way down to 1.6 GHz. And let me tell you, those drops are very, very, very jarring. Now, when we actually got into the CPU test, though, we did drop a little bit down to about 3.8 GHz, but not super, super bad. I mean, it's acceptable, it's not great, but it's acceptable. So, another test that we did was 3D Mark Skydiver, and this is another one where you could see we still had more drops, and that simply comes into the account of the power limit. Trying to run everything at 4.1 GHz, and when then the CPU is getting heavily, heavily taxed, it's going to drop speed. Now, it never did its 1.6 drop like what it would normally do if it got under a serious load, but it still dropped down to 3.7 GHz. Now, that was an all-core 3.7 GHz. But, guys, it is not all doom and gloom. You remember what I said about the Cinebench scores? Well, let's now talk about what it would be like just having your CPU run at 3.7. I never once had it drop power limit on me, or I never had it once drop on me due to power limit. It stayed at a 1.7 all-core boost the entire time, at least when it wasn't into its Intel speed step, which is just honestly great. it was not as high of a core clock as what most people would want when it comes to X58. But this is a Dell Precision T3500. It was not designed to overclock, and it's actually able to hold this kind of an overclock. And, well, what else does that mean? Well, you can pick up an X5680, which is mine, or which is the CPU I used for this benchmark, and you can essentially clock it up to what an X5690 would be, even possibly slightly above that if you wanted to try and really tune in the overclocks, which is actually kind of mental. Just to think that you can spend $50 on a CPU and have it be clocked as if it was a $75 CPU. Now, I know that might not be a big deal for some people, but if you're on a mega budget, you can really do a lot with that. But I'm now going to talk about something else that people don't like. You can also simply not overclock and buy a higher speed CPU. There are two CPUs that really come to mind, and this was the first CPU I ever recommended on my channel, and it's gonna be another CPU that I recommend on my channel. The X5677 and the X5687. Well, yes, these two CPUs are only quad-core CPUs. I got something very cool to show you. And right here is an FPS graph of my frame rates that I had while playing Call of Duty Warzone on the X5677 and my GTX 980 Ti. And yes, as I've said in the past, I still have it because I figured there's no point in me selling it if I'm just going to probably end up needing it in the long term anyways. But I digress. We had about an average FPS of about 85 to 90, where we were maxing out at about 96 FPS. But take a look at our frame times. The only time where we actually had somewhat poor frame times was when we were in the menu. But when we were actually playing, those are insanely smooth frame times. Now yes, this is coming out of a quad-core CPU. This is coming out of a $12 quad-core CPU. It is 4 cores and 8 threads. This thing is essentially as fast as an i7 2600. Not quite as fast, but almost just about. And so, that's where my recommendation is going to go. Yes, you can pick up a W3680 if you want to try and overclock and really try and push your Dell Precision further. But, if you just want to put together a PC and have a real decent gaming PC, pick yourself up an X5677 or an X5687. And I mean that. Both of those CPUs, I think the X5687 will come in to be about $25 to $30, and the X5677 should be about $10 to $15. And at those prices for those two CPUs, you will be getting way better average FPS and way better frame times than if you were to pick up something like an X5670 or an X5675. By the way, you guys, the X5675 is not the end-all be-all of X58 CPUs. Okay, guys, and this is where we're going to be wrapping it up here. What do I think about the Dell Precision T3500? It's a great PC. It really is, and it's a lot of fun to get to actually use. But I still stand on these things are not built for overclocking. And because of that hard power cap, you might as well just pick up one of the very, very cheap quad cores and just have a more budget-oriented PC. Guys, that's where X58 really gains its value, being able to buy the X5677 and the X5687 and have good i7 equivalent CPUs for $10 to $20. And that's really where it comes into. That is why I don't think you should really be spending a whole heck of a lot on a Dell Precision. Why you shouldn't be spending a whole heck of a lot on X58. And I hate to say it, but X58 is starting to get a little bit long in the tooth. Not bad. I mean, the frame rates are still there, and the frame times are still there. But it's just not as fast as what I think it could be. It's not as fast as doing the custom overclocking with custom motherboards. But that's the thing. That's custom motherboards. And typically, those will run you about $100 themselves. When, like I said, buying a Dell Precision, you can buy that entire tower for $100. So, I'll just leave you with that food for thought, and now let's actually talk about what I want to do with my channel. I've spent a lot of time on X58 now, I've spent a whole heck of a lot of time on X58, and I absolutely love this platform. But I really would like to venture off and try out other platforms, primarily X79, X50, or X79, X99. I would like to try out some LGA 1155, 1156, and 1150. Also, there's just like kind of a few other like side things that I want to try out, but I have not had really the time to do it when it comes to essentially spending all my time focusing on X58. So I will be transitioning into, well, other platforms. And I still do plan on doing that full Dell Precision T3500 custom build, doing the whole custom build, custom paint job, custom everything. But for right now, that is going to get put on the back burner, and I will revisit that in probably like a month or 2 months' time, depending on how well other platforms kind of do and how well other platforms kind of do on my channel, I should say. So, yeah. If there's anything super specific you guys want me to check out, I actually do have a few motherboards on order right now to see some X79 stuff. There's a good handful of CPUs that I'm going to try out on X79, and X79, at least for the short term, for the future short term, will be what I'm going to be primarily focusing on. But, like I said, if there's anything specific you guys want to see, or anything like you guys actually want to know about, definitely hit me up, definitely let me know, definitely leave me a comment, letting me know, like, exactly the kind of stuff you guys want to see, because I really do want my channel to keep growing the way that it has been, and it has grown way faster, way more than what I ever thought it could. So thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you all later. Peace out for now.